Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about some news that came out that Sega is interested in producing some live action adaptations of the Persona games, which I think is so fascinating. I can't easily picture it because I feel like Persona is one of those things where it's like, yes, there's some fantastical elements with some of like the set design and stuff like that and the personas and like the enemies you come across. But other than that, it's like, well, I mean, you just need regular people. So, I mean, fantastical in some regards, but a lot of that, half and half of that would be fantastical stuff and the other would just be like everyday school life stuff. So I'm like, I'm curious how they would go about adapting that. Hopefully it isn't to a movie, because I've seen stuff saying like movies or TV shows, like if you're going to adapt Persona, that needs to, like, not unless you're planning on doing like a film franchise. I would prefer TV shows because I mean, for one, that's just my preferred format, but the pacing and story of Persona needs to be told over the course of a TV show anyway. I have yet to watch an anime adaptation. Not like I have an issue, I've just never set aside time to actually do it, because I'm so curious, because that'd probably give me a better idea of what you could do pacing wise with an anime. But even then, it's like, if they were to adapt that into a TV show, it'd most likely be like an hour-long TV show, you know, length. So I'd be so curious how they would go about adapting that. I don't think it'd be a thing of like, oh, we're gonna do like the US version of Persona. I was like, I don't think that. I mean, maybe they do a Japanese version and then later on someone's like, hey, let's do an American adaptation or something like that. Because I mean, I think you could still make it applicable, but it's like that story is stylized to take place in a Japanese school and stuff like that. So I'd be so curious how they structure that. What would they keep out? What would they keep? Some of the stuff I've seen online was kind of like, oh, like, would they adapt one of the games, or would they make an original story, just use the Persona IP? I could definitely see it kind of getting used to like to make an original story, maybe pulling a little bit here and there. I doubt you could ever like do an amalgamation of all those stories, because I mean, obviously, like, Tartarus is different from the Midnight Channel, which is different, also different from like the Palaces. So like vibe, like amalgamating all that probably wouldn't work necessarily, not unless you make a new thing and take little elements here and there from those three. I mean, I'm referencing 3, 4, and 5 because they're the ones I'm the most familiar with. I'm not that familiar with the earlier Persona games, but I could definitely see like a Netflix making these, just because like Netflix has been big into like making live adaptations of like webtoons and manga, and this has kind of still got that same flavor and feel as stylistically. So I could definitely see a Netflix doing this, or maybe even a Prime Video, but I'm leaning more towards Netflix just because of the international element to it. Would they even include any of like the social link stuff? Once again, like if I watched the anime, I'd probably have like a better idea have some idea of how they'd cut down a Persona game. We're talking like an 100-hour plus video game, so it's like there's going to be a lot of snipping and cutting, a lot of the social life. They probably just like do some like the most small amount of school life stuff, and then just like mystery, more fantastical elements. I mean, balancing the two could probably help like bring your budget down, I'm sure. But I mean, I don't know what it takes to make a TV show, so I wouldn't know all the ins and outs, because you probably need obviously the costuming and locations and stuff like that. Even aside from just like the more fantastical elements of, I mean, because it also depends, like, because if you go with like a 3 or 4 aesthetic, their clothes don't change, so the costuming would stay the same. But if you did a 5, you'd have to change the costuming, because obviously when they go into palaces, they have their Phantom Thief gear on. So, and what about the main protagonist? Would his if you did a main protagonist, would they be the fool that they typically are, and being the wild card that they are able to have multiple personas? Would you lean into that for a live adaptation, or would you kind of keep it not one-off personas? Because I did watch a Persona anime once, but it was like, it wasn't an adaptation of the games. Like, or maybe it's connected and I just don't remember because it was so long ago, but it was like, it was kind of its own thing, if I remember correctly. I think it was like an OVA, but I could be misremembering. This was like years and years ago. I'm curious, would they make the personas like would they give them like, what's the it's a weird example to make just because it's in my head, like Ryuk from any live action Death Note. Like, would they have him kind of like be not would they have more physical things, or would they kind of be more outlined ghosts? Like, how would they go? I'd assume they'd kind of give them a full-blown look to them, like they do in a game when you summon them. They're not like, they have like their physical body. They're not like designed. I'm not explaining myself well. The more ethereal look, where they're kind of like more see-through and elusive, versus like a lot of times where they'll seem more real life, like they're almost like they're there in person. Like, I'm curious what aesthetic they would go with. I'd assume the latter, but maybe they could easily end up doing the former, or at least starting with the former and eventually getting to the latter, like how you like at the beginning of Persona 5. Because if I remember correctly, in the opening, our Shin is kind of hidden a little bit. Like, you can't see his full form. It's more of an outline to some extent. It's been a while since I've played Persona 5, so I might be misremembering that wrong. But either way, just some of the stuff kind of flowing through my head. Obviously, these are, like I said, just some of my thoughts. I'd love to get to know yours in the comments down below. Would you prefer a movie? Would you prefer a TV show when it comes to Persona? Would you want to adapt one of the games? Or would you more so want them to do, you know, something original? I definitely see like an entire cast and maybe like brand new personas. I don't know. It probably would be easier just because the groundwork's already there to adapt one of the other games, but maybe that'd just be too much. So it'd be easier just because expectation wise, it'd be easier just to adapt. I mean, just make something original. But obviously that's just my thoughts. Like I said, just let me know what you're thinking. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.